the November 9th Eclipse community call, Eclipse OpenJ9 community call. As always, please add your name and affiliation to the list of attendees in the agenda, just so we have some idea of who's been attending the calls. And then I'll pause here for a minute. We have the agenda before us, but if there's something that you'd like to add to that agenda, feel free to chime in now, or to add it to the end of the agenda, and we can tackle it in the any other business section. So I'll just pause in case somebody wants to bring something up now. Okay. And we do have a lightning talk set up for today. Lan, are you ready to go with that?
Yes, I am.
All right, if you want to take over the sharing, feel free.
Sure. Thanks. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let me. So in today's talk, I'm going to quickly talk about the scenario where how to get OpenJ9 Nightly for testing. If you follow our previous Lightning series, we actually talk about using rerun in grinder link. So that's in any test job nightly runs, you be able to see this rerun in grinder or rerun in grinder on same machine. So the downside of this though is you need to find the test job in Jenkins in order to get to this page. Alternative for this one, the second option you have is to go to the SDK compilation job and then get the customized SDK URL, or in the adopt.dm pipeline, then you will see that the SDK is temporarily archived on Jenkins. When I say temporarily, it means that it will be overwritten by the next job. So it only archived one. If you can copy the URL link, put into the grinder as a customized URL. But the problem with that is, one, you have to make sure that the link is alive, because sometimes they will be replaced by the next one. The name will change because we have a timestamp there. Secondly is depends on the Jenkins setup that you may want to have to set up the credentials where you're downloading this. Internal Jenkins, for example, you need to have a credentials, otherwise it's not going to allow you to do so. And then the third one that we talked about in the previous Nightly talk as well is to use the SDK resource equal to Nightly, where you don't need to go through getting the jobs or even getting the SDK jobs. You can go to Grindr directly and set SDK resource equal to Nightly. However, this is outdated for OpenJ9 SDK. Some of you may already know that adopt OpenJDK API, which is what the Nightly actually points to. It does not have the native OpenJ9 Nightly SDK anymore. It will not give you error if you use it. It will just download the last uploaded SDK, which is back in May. So this has caused some confusion. So I want to clarify in here today that you cannot use the SDK resource equal to Nightly at this point. There is a talk that we will have our similar API set up, but I'm not sure that they will provide Nightly build. This works with Hotspot, just not for OpenJ9. So what's the alternative? When you run Grindr with Nightly, we can get the latest from the Artifactory. How to use this? Two options that you have to do. One is you still do SDK equal to Nightly, and then the second one is the customized SDK URL. In here, you provide the Artifactory URL up to the SDK job name. You don't need to specify what job number it is or the jar even. You don't need to. You just, so in the example here, you can see I just all the way up till build JDK 17, PPCLE, Linux Nightly, and that's it. And then the job will go ahead and try to query the Artifactory and get the latest SDK for you. The example 2 is the internal Artifactory server. As you can see, the structure is completely different. So that's kind of the reason that we still need user to provide us basically the front of the domain of what you're pointing at. And also the last point I want to mention is you do have to remember that if there's a restrictive access for the Artifactory, which is that, for example, internal Artifactory, then you do have to provide the credential ID. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So in the quick demo, I have Jenkins build that grinder that I previously launched. So I'm just going to quickly show in this build, what I did is I did SDK resource equal to Nightly, and then I did customize SDK equal to for the OpenJ9. So it's OpenJ9 Artifactory server up to the job name. And then that's it. That's all you need to do. And then also just a quick tip, if you want to change the platform, by the way, I put this as example here already for the internal Jenkins. I also put both two example internal Artifactory and external Artifactory. And for the external OpenJ9 Artifactory, all you need to do is change the platform if you want to match, say, Linux. Then I actually have another example which I will talk about. All you need to do is change that, copy that, set it to platform, and then set it here. So for this PPCLE, just quickly talk into the console output, how it looks like. What we do behind the scene basically is, so the user provides the URL, and then we will query the Artifactory and get the latest, which is 74 at that point in time, and then we'll download all the jars. So in this case, will be OpenJ9, SDK, debug image, and test image. And then we will just, and then unzip it and then run the test like the normal runs. There's no difference moving forward. Just I have another grinder. So just to quickly show the difference. If I want to run, say, I change my platform, I want to run Linux, I just change my platform and then change this one here. So then you will get Linux for the run. I think that's a really quick demo in terms of how to get OpenJ9 Nightly from Artifactory. Any questions?
Hey, Lan. I have a question about downloading SDKs from Artifactory. It asks for authentication.
For internal, yes.
And how would that authentication work if I'm doing something on command line?
On your local machine?
Yes.
You have to use your own credential. You can set up the Artifactory tokens. If you log in with your own credential, you can do that. But if you download from the web page, though, it's already authenticated to you. So if, like, say, if you're doing curl, you have to use your own credential, right?
And what will
if you go to the web link,
is that going to be the W3 credentials?
I think so. And then if you do the web page,
W3 or you can set up a token.
Once more?
You can use W3 or you can set up a token.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
And that's only if you don't want to have downloaded it yourself and just set test JDK home locally, right?
Because currently I have to download it on my local machine from the browser, and then I have to SCP it into my Fire machine because the authentication on command line doesn't work for me.
Authentication on command line usually works if you have Artifactory tokens. So if you set up Artifactory token, I find that one works the best. If you have another thing is if you have, like, you can just download from browser, then you use your W3 authentication and then download from the browser.
And did we do a? I'm not sure. I wasn't here for a few weeks. Did we do? Were instructions on creating a token given on this call?
No.
No. Okay. I will look it up. Thank you.
No problem. If there's no more questions, back to you, Dan.
Thanks, Lan, and thanks for taking us through the details on that. It's good to know when the things have changed for us with respect to the Adoptium and Adopt uploads. So Much appreciated on that.
Yeah, and
Right.
I'm sorry I missed the front of that, but you'll note that if you just chose Nightly and didn't put anything there, it's going to download you a very old Nightly from the Adoptium API. As there are still old Nightlies available through that API, I believe.
Yeah, Lan had pointed that out, that you'll get something, but it won't be what you expect.
You may consider putting a warning or a error there.
Take a quick look at the recent user raised issues. I think the only thing that's come in since the last one is a question about Java agent ending up on the class path twice, which we've assigned to the 030 release. Is there anything else in this list of issues that needs more discussion or focus right now on this call, or that we should touch base on after the call? Jump back to our agenda. In the interest of time, we'll skip over the download stats from Adopt OpenJDK. Take a look at our releases. We have the 029 release, and we've closed out the milestone plan here. There had been some discussion about whether we wanted to do a one-off update to address the unknown class issue. And as per the last call, we were waiting to see what the field impact on that actually was. Pete, is there any update on that? We can't hear you, Pete, or at least I can't. See, you're unmuted, but.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
So there's been no change since last week. Nobody's said anything about this issue. The person who was communicating with us about a problem that could have been this issue never came back to us. So I cleared out the 029.0 milestone plan and closed it and marked a couple things as backport candidates so we could find them later if necessary, but I don't think we're going to be considering any interim releases. So.
Okay, then I will remove this from the agenda at this point. Can always resurrect it if we need to talk about something like that. And that brings us, of course, to the Java 17 release, which is primarily the one issue here. So, Jack, do you have an update on where we're at with this?
Yes, Dan. So over the weekend, I had a run with modifying the count and compile function, which we use to transition to JIT. Once we disabled the transition to JIT during the make intrinsic call, lists, as of the grinder performance, guaranteed 100% pass on this issue. So we're suspecting that it might be the transition or the JIT compile code that is causing this issue. I have been trying to set up the exclusions on different JIT parameters on which method not to compile, but I wasn't successful in finding a specific method that affects it. I tried disabling the invoker bytecode generator, and that did not work. The only thing I see possible might be the lambda form prepare, like other functions from there, which could cause this potential issue. Right now, I've been trying to essentially set a watch point using an internal parameter to verify that every method invocation and method return during the make intrinsic call, that we check to make sure the location where we're supposed to see the null pointer exception are not being written by invalid values during that method call. But I wasn't able to trace any of the JIT methods as soon as it enters one of the I to J, I think there's no way for us from the VM side to actually know when it will return. So I'm not getting any actual data update on that. I am reviewing some of my output parameters to make sure that I didn't accidentally remove the output. And just a note then, recently, I think I'm testing on the master branch right now. So with the latest changes in, the occurrences of this issue have dropped to about 1 in 100.
How many changes have gone in between that may affect something like this between the master branch or the main branch and the release branch?
I don't think there's a lot. I believe some JIT performance updates have been going on, and from the VM side, I don't think there's anything that's directly related to this. I know Babneet is working on some of the Java Next features in the method handle natives code. I'm not sure if he had already pushed those in.
Those are still work in progress. They haven't been pushed. Yeah.
So I don't think there's any changes from the VM side that I am aware of that should affect this.
You mentioned that we have the Idj transition, and you weren't sure if there was a place to catch the return on that.
Yes. So once we've disabled the count and compile, which basically forces every method in make intrinsic to always be run in interpreter, we did see this issue go away, or at least on the limited test that I have been running on Grindr. I've tried to set specific debug printfs and checks in the inline send target and the and for every return bytecode. So the different versions of Java bytecode return, which ultimately uses the return slots info. I've tried to set up there, and also try to set up in the generic return to check that once we've entered make intrinsic and whenever a method is being returned, we check whether the slot that we're expecting to be holding the correct value for the receiver is being set to null by the method that's just finished. And right now in my testing, I don't see anything being set, yet I am still reaching the point where the null pointer exception is being thrown.
On the game we've played in the past with this kind of thing has been to try to align the data correctly so you can page protect an entire page and then catch any writes back to that page. So there may be a game you can play here to buy a whole bunch of extra stack and leave some blank space in there so that as you make that call into the JIT, you buy a whole bunch of extra stack.
Right.
And leave things set up so that you can page protect the page below you and nobody can write to those values. And then on return from the JIT, you can unprotect that. And if anybody has touched that memory in between, you'll know.
Oh, okay, I see. Thanks, Dan. I will try this out and see if I would be able to get any results from that.
Dan, would you have an existing example in OpenJ9 issue which we can use to quickly find the solution?
We haven't done it on the stack. The last time we did something like this the last time I know of it was several years ago where we did it to some RAM class data. I think that may have even predated being open. So I don't know that I have a link anymore to the efforts that went into that.
Okay.
I will search RTC for it to see if I can find an example on Jazz.
Okay. So we continue in our day-to-day slip.
Yes.
I'd suggest he may have already been involved in this, but it's probably worth reaching out to GAC and seeing if he's got other suggestions or has other bits of code where we've done similar games that he can provide.
Okay. I will send a message to GAC after this meeting to ask for his advice.
So that brings us to the 030 release, where we're about 2 weeks and a little bit away from our milestone split date, and we're looking at 154 open items. So anybody, again, who has items in this list, please take some time and try and burn this list down. Anything that you don't expect to close out in the next 2 weeks, start the conversation with area leads and see what can be moved out and whether it needs to be completed or has to be pushed farther forward. Pete, is there any particular items in this list that you want to call out as worrisome at this point?
I don't know of any blockers. I think we had a couple things marked as blockers, but we've either fixed them or done something to remove the blocker label. So, in fact, anything that we can't resolve in time, we'll just get moved forward. I'll create the new milestone plan if we don't have it already, so there's somewhere to move them forward to.
And of course, once we get that branch created, we're running up on holiday season where people will start to be disappearing. So feels like it's a long time until that release, but it often sneaks up on us due to the holiday season around Christmas. So please do be conscientious about getting things moved out and updated. And then I see the 031 release for Java 18. And see that it says we're blocked for the core reflection with method handles, Jep.
Right. So, yeah, I was just going to ask you, Babneet, if you wanted to give an update on that.
Actually, had an update typed slightly below in the next page. JDK 18 build broken. So 3 issues were created, and I think I should have something by the end of today which should fix some of the issues or all of the issues in order to unblock the JDK next builds.
Is that with reflection using method handles enabled or disabled?
We would have to, I think, disable, or we would have to use the existing implementation of reflection. I think more work will be needed to support JEP 416. So we will have to enable the use direct method handle equals false Java flag. But once the JEP 416 is fully supported, we can revert that change.
So basically, we're disabling the use of method handles in reflection until we're ready to support this.
I think currently reflection is used before method handles are initialized. And because of that, the reflection code goes up in an infinite loop and ends up with a stack overflow error. So we'll have to readjust some of the OpenJ9 classes so that reflection doesn't get used before method handles are initialized.
Yeah, I think that the reflection caused the stack overflow. It's not directly, I mean, the fault of the JEP 416, that implementation itself, more like the reflection call that method handle kind of too early at the reflect cache at bootstrap code level. My quick test showing like if we just cache application level, Dutch version works fine without a stack overflow error. So maybe we just need twisting a little bit there, just skip first the few caches, hopefully, and then we can work around this without impact the performance.
looking into using the new reflection API, which may automatically resolve this issue. And I think it will take some more time, but for the time being, the quickest way to unblock the builds will be to disable the
That's
new
correct.
JEP 416 changes. Yeah.
And we'll have to keep pushing on getting that implemented and get to where we need to be with it. Right? Any other update on that?
No, I think that concludes my update for the JEP 416 and the JDK 18 broken builds.
Thanks, Pabneet. Pete, before I move on, was there anything else you wanted to talk about for Java 18? Or propose to schedule maybe next week or as we get closer?
Yeah, I don't think the OpenJDK schedule is posted yet. I could double check. Yeah, OpenJDK hasn't even posted a schedule, so I think we can wait until we at least have that schedule.
That's good. And we will jump to the general updates. Shelley, do you want to update on Adopt?
There's not really too much to say there. I'll repeat a couple of things that were announced in the Adopt channel, which was that we are closing off the last of this issue, or the items relating to the October release. So that includes the JDK 8 Solaris platforms needing to be completed, and then a JDK 17 AIX that needs to be done. And then some Docker, some container work, and Linux installer work is still underway. But those are kind of the remaining tasks to close out October release. That's probably as much as I'll say today.
Thanks, Shelley. We'll move down. Adam, is there an update on the infrastructure side of things?
Not a whole lot. All the Mac M1s are online. Raj has been testing them with grinders. The Equinix AR64 is still going back and forth between Equinix and works on our project to see about getting a suitable machine with enough disk. So we don't have an ET on that right now. And I just did a Jenkins upgrade this morning and all the plugin updates and the OS updates. So it's all done. If there's any problems, let me know. Don't expect anything though. That's about it.
Thanks, Adam. Devin, is there an update on Cmake?
Nothing new to report there, really. Still crunching away on some miscellaneous.
Marius, is there an update on JIT server?
Not much. So for us, the next big thing is AOT server-side caching, and we hope to have that in the 0.30 release by the end of the year.
Sounds good. Thanks for updating the microJIT date. Obi, is there anything to call out on the snapshot restore efforts?
So the new API to update environment variables has been updated to address some of the concerns. The next thing will be to enable user level hooks. So that will be coming in another PR. And yeah, that's about it for now.
Looks like Loom is still paused for us. Cheng, is there an update on Panama?
For APCO, just already fixed all the completion errors, detecting the completion, and get started to work on to investigate a bunch of bugs, detect for the primitive type on Unix PowerPC 64-bit RE. So yeah, that's about it.
I think we can continue to push the health center and monitoring story discussion for now. Pete, is there anything else on the conscious language initiatives?
No. Just something that we'd like to resolve by sometime in 2022. I can't remember the date anymore, but I could look it up and add it in here.
For the adopt folks on the call, Shelley and Lan, did a replacement name get picked for the test cycles or the test levels?
No. So first of all, there needs not to be a replacement name, but that we haven't actually received any direct feedback from anyone that this needs to happen. However, I had mentioned to, I think, one of the OpenJ9 project leads, Mark Studley, that we would try to scope the work, because this would be a major disruption. There weren't any replacement suggestions in the article that I was pointed at that would be appropriate replacements. So we would either have to consider changing all the names of all the levels so that it would be a value-added change to make understanding of the levels of testing more clear to everyone, or keep as is. So the point being, this is a major undertaking that would need scoping and an assessment of how much work needs to be done, and it wouldn't be done anytime soon because we really don't have the people power to get to it. I'm not opposed to it. We definitely have talked about that we could use Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, but if we go that route, our sanity.openjdk group is actually matching to the Tier 1 group in OpenJDK, but our extended OpenJDK group does not match currently to Tier 2. So that tier naming is used already in OpenJDK. So we'd also have to reorg all of the tests in that particular group. Yeah, there is a deadline, but I understood from Mark Studley, who's on the committee that set up those guidelines, that this is not a requirement, that we can actually push back on this if we need to.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a requirement. It's just a nice thing to do. So
it could be a nice thing to do, yeah, if the community itself hasn't received any actual complaints. But I would say that sanity comes from the word sanitize, and so if we change the level to call sanitize.blah, we would probably also upset people who didn't wash. So I recognize that this is an actual known conversation in the community. I also recognize that if I use the term normal, I'm not supposed to anymore. I'm supposed to use the term typical. And I'm wondering at what point we run out of terms to use. But I will say that we have actually, I believe there would be value add to change to use a numbering system like a Tier 1 or Base 1, Base 2, Base 3. I think it would actually add to the level of understanding of the users of this stuff. So I am interested in doing it. I like the idea of improving the understanding of things. So it's just more about now, how do we work it into the schedule? What does it cost? How do we accomplish it without disrupting or causing projects to fall behind because we've disrupted their ability to use our stuff. So I guess that's me. Sorry for the long discussion there, but I'll say I think we're interested in doing it, but if and when we do it, we want to do it in a way that's non-disruptive to the projects that use us. And it's more involved than one might think just from looking at it from the surface. There's a lot of additional things that need to be changed underneath, including code in the test results summary service, including how we have clients that read this different stuff. So, yeah. I guess what we should do is put a milestone date or put a date on the work around how long and how much work is involved, and that way we can at least project a date of which this could happen if we take it on.
Just so you know where IBM's coming from, I put their reasoning behind why this should change into the minutes. And if it helps, I could open an issue somewhere. You suggest where I should open it?
Yeah, I think we can open an issue or I can as well, in the Aqua tests repo in terms of, but I think it should also be captured that this wouldn't just be for the, because of the implication that word is derogatory, because I think that's potentially up for debate. I think this also can be considered an improvement to the understanding of what levels mean for test. So I think it should capture all of that information.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the other point was that it's not just that it's derogatory, it's also difficult to translate if you don't speak English. So people who don't speak English might have trouble understanding what we're talking about.
Yeah, which is another reason to go for numbered system as well. Yeah. Do you want me to take that action, Pete? Or
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'll report back next time we meet here.
Yeah, like you can see from the date, there's no rush, but...
Well, there would be, because that date's really tight considering what would need to change. So the other thing that'll have to happen is the Aqua Beat core committers, which include 4 people from the OpenJ9 team, more than half of them are from OpenJ9 team, need to actually have other work be pushed off their plate to be able to get this done, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add that this is not just a name change because it affects how the pipeline runs, and then we probably have to regenerate all the test job, and also Adoptium upstream pipeline, OpenJ9 upstream pipeline also have to be changed. Run Aqua also include that OpenJ9 PR builds, and then plus the downstream whoever that consumes those pipelines. So we need to size this.
Yeah. So we'll get the issue open in Aquatest and for sizing the change and seeing what are all the places where it would need to actually be done, including documentation, including a lot of ant tools. But yeah, thanks for bringing it up. We'll issue number into the minutes next time.
Thanks, Shelley. And thanks, everybody. I realize we're over time, so we'll call it here, and we can pick up any further discussion on this either in the issue or on any of the topics on the next call. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.